You're 35 years old. You've been telling yourself for the past decade that you'll start investing seriously next year. You finally open up a retirement calculator, punch in some numbers, and realize that to retire at 65 with a decent lifestyle, you need to save $2,000 a month, every single month, for the next 30 years. Your friend who started at 25, she only needs to save $600 a month to end up with more money than you. And just like that, you realize you're not just behind. You're in a completely different race. My name is Elon Musk, and I spend way too much time thinking about the mathematical brutality of compound interest working against you instead of for you. If you're someone who keeps putting off their financial future because there's always time to catch up later, make sure to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if this helps you out. Because look, what I'm about to show you is uncomfortable, but understanding this might be the wake-up call that actually changes your financial trajectory. Here's the thing that nobody wants to talk about. Financial catch-up isn't just hard. It's mathematically, psychologically, and practically brutal in ways that most people don't fully understand until they're already deep in it. And I'm not talking about people who had major setbacks, medical emergencies, job losses, things outside their control. I'm talking about the millions of people who simply waited, who thought time was on their side, who believed that making more money later would make up for not saving earlier. Spoiler alert, it almost never does. Let me show you exactly what I mean with some real numbers, because this is where it gets really interesting. Sarah starts investing at age 25. She puts away $300 a month, not a huge amount, into an index fund averaging 8% annual returns. She does this for just 10 years, then stops completely at age 35. Total invested, $36,000. Michael waits until 35 to start. He realizes he's behind, so he invests $300 a month too, but he keeps going all the way until 65. That's 30 years of contributions. Total invested, $108,000. By age 65, Sarah has approximately $340,000. Michael, about $340,000 as well. Wait, what? Michael invested 3 times as much money and ended up with the same amount. That's the first level of brutality. But here's where most people don't realize the full picture. Michael had to maintain that discipline for 30 consecutive years, while Sarah only had to do it for 10. The psychological burden alone is completely different. Now you might be thinking, okay, but at least he caught up, right? Not really. Let's look at what happens if Sarah just left that money alone and Michael doubled his contributions to $600 a month for those same 30 years. Sarah still ends up with $340,000. Michael, he'd have about $680,000. He had to invest $216,000 total, 6 times what Sarah invested, to end up with twice as much money. That's a terrible return on the extra effort. Here's what most people don't realize about compound interest. It's not just a bonus for starting early. It's an exponential penalty for starting late. A Vanguard study from 2023 found that every 5 years you delay saving for retirement, you need to roughly double your monthly contribution to achieve the same outcome. Let me say that again, double, not increase by 50%, double. Start at 25, you need $500 a month. Start at 30, you need about $1,000 a month. Start at 35, you need $2,000 a month. Start at 40, you're looking at $4,000 a month to reach the same goal. By 45, you need to save nearly $8,000 a month for 20 years to catch up to what someone achieved by saving $500 a month starting at 25. Look, I know these numbers sound exaggerated, but pull up any compound interest calculator and run them yourself. The math is ruthless. Now here's where it gets psychologically twisted, and this is something I see all the time. People in their 20s tell themselves, I'm not making enough money to save right now. I'll save when I'm making more. Then they hit their 30s and are making more, maybe $70,000 or $80,000 instead of $45,000. But now they've also upgraded their lifestyle. Better apartment, nicer car, more expensive habits. They're making more but not saving more. Then the 40s hit, maybe they're at $100,000 or $120,000. Sounds great, right? Except now they have kids, a mortgage, car payments, and life insurance. Their expenses have grown proportionally or worse, exponentially with their income. According to research from the Federal Reserve's Survey of Consumer Finances, the median retirement savings for Americans aged 35-44 is just $60,000. For ages 45-54, it's $100,000. That's barely more, despite an additional decade of supposedly higher earning years. The trap is this: lifestyle inflation eats income growth for breakfast. Most people end up with the same percentage of their income available to save, or less, even as they earn more. They never actually have that extra money they were waiting for. But here's something even more brutal that nobody talks about: the time trade-off. When you start playing financial catch-up, you're not just saving more money. You're trading more of your present life for your future life, and not in the philosophical sense, in a very real, very practical sense. Let's say you're 40 and realize you need to save $3,000 a month to retire at 65. That might mean working a side hustle every weekend for the next 25 years. Never taking that vacation you've been dreaming about. Driving a 10-year-old car when you could afford something nicer. Watching your friends enjoy their money while you're in permanent catch-up mode. You're essentially living like you're broke when you're not, all because you didn't save when saving was cheap. And here's the really painful part, your friends who started early, they get to enjoy their 40s and 50s. They're not in panic mode. They can take that sabbatical, start that business, or work part-time if they want. They bought their freedom with relatively painless consistency in their 20s. You're buying the same freedom with brutal sacrifice in your 40s. This is where it gets really dark, honestly. A study published in the Journal of Financial Planning found that people who are significantly behind on retirement savings experience stress levels comparable to those with chronic health conditions. We're talking elevated cortisol, sleep disruption, relationship strain, the whole package. Because here's the thing, once you realize you're behind, that knowledge sits with you every single day. Every purchase becomes fraught. Every unexpected expense feels like a catastrophe. You're constantly running the math in your head. If I spend this $50, that's $300 less at retirement with compound interest. It's exhausting. And it creates this vicious cycle. The stress of being behind makes it harder to make good financial decisions, which keeps you behind, which creates more stress. I've seen people in their late 40s who basically give up because the math looks impossible. They stop planning for retirement altogether because the goal seems unreachable. So they just don't look at it, don't think about it, hope something magically works out. That's not a strategy, that's despair with a budget. Now you might be thinking, okay, but what if I just invest more aggressively, take bigger risks to catch up faster? Yeah, that's the other trap. When you're playing catch up, you can't afford to take the risks that might actually help you catch up. Because if you swing for the fences and miss, you don't have time to recover. Think about it, someone who's 25 and loses 50% of their portfolio in a risky investment. It sucks, but they have 40 years to recover. Someone who's 50 and loses 50%, they're potentially never retiring. So you're stuck in this impossible position. You need above-average returns to catch up, but you can't take above-average risks because you don't have time to recover from mistakes. You need to run faster, but you have to be more careful. It's like trying to win a race while also being told you can't stumble. According to Morningstar research, investors in their 50s who are behind on savings actually tend to take less risk than they should, not more, because the fear of loss is so psychologically overwhelming. They end up in conservative investments that mathematically can't help them catch up. Look, this isn't about intelligence. Some of the people I know are terrible with money. Here's why this happens. Present bias, our brains are wired to overvalue immediate rewards and undervalue future consequences. $100 today feels more real than $1,000 in 30 years, even though the future money is worth 10x more. Exponential thinking is hard. We're linear thinkers living in an exponential world. When you hear your money doubles every 10 years at 7% returns, your brain thinks, okay, so it goes 100, 200, 300, 400. Nope, it goes 100, 200, 400, 800, 1,600. We consistently underestimate compound growth. Optimism bias, we think we'll always have more time, make more money, or somehow be the exception. According to research from Duke University, 80% of people believe they're better with money than average. That's mathematically impossible, which means half of us are wrong about ourselves. Normalization, if everyone around you is bad with money, it doesn't feel urgent. You aren't saving either. Your friends are all financing new cars. It feels normal to be behind because everyone's behind. This is what most people don't realize. Successful financial catch-up isn't just about math. It requires a complete psychological transformation that most people aren't prepared for. You have to fundamentally change your relationship with time. You can't think in years anymore. You think in decades. Every financial decision is evaluated by its 20-year consequence, not its immediate impact. Identity, you have to be willing to be the weird one. The person who says no to expensive dinners, drives an older car, skips trendy purchases. Your identity can't be tied to consumption anymore. Gratification, you're essentially choosing delayed gratification on steroids, not just denying for years, maybe decades. Most people can't sustain this, not because they're weak, but because we're social creatures living in a consumption-based society. Going against that current for 20-30 years straight requires almost monk-like discipline. Here's what nobody wants to say out loud. If you're in your 40s or 50s with minimal retirement savings, you're probably not going to have a traditional retirement. The math just doesn't work. According to the Employee Benefit Research Institute, 40% of baby boomers and Gen Xers are projected to run out of money in retirement. Not struggle, actually run out. If you're 50 with $50,000 saved and want to retire at 65, you need to save roughly $3,500 per month to have even a modest retirement income. For most people, that's simply not possible. So what happens? You work longer, maybe until 70 or 75. You take Social Security late to maximize the benefit. You downsize aggressively. Maybe you move somewhere cheaper, think leaving California for Texas or Florida. Or you semi-retire, working part-time in something lower stress. These aren't terrible options, but they're not the retirement that was sold to us. No traveling the world, no golf every day, just a continuation of working life, but hopefully a bit easier. Okay, look, I've been pretty doom and gloom here, but here's the thing. Understanding the problem is actually the first step to solving it. And there are strategies that work, even if you're behind. The catch-up contribution, if you're 50 or older, the IRS actually lets you contribute more to retirement accounts. In 2024, that's an extra $7,500 to your 401k and an extra $1,000 to your IRA. It's not enough to fix everything, but it's something. The power of habit, you don't need to go from zero to hero overnight. Research from BJ shows that tiny habits, consistently applied, create remarkable change. Start with $50 a month. Once that's automatic, bump it to $100, then $150. Small increases every few months add up to major changes over years. The side hustle advantage, we live in the gig economy. That second income stream, even if it's just $500 $1,000 a month, can be entirely dedicated to catch-up savings. A 45-year-old who adds $800 a month from side income for 20 years, that's potentially $470,000 at retirement at 8% returns. That's life-changing. The expense audit, most people find 10-20% of their spending that isn't actually making them happy. Subscriptions they don't use, convenient spending out of habit, lifestyle inflation they don't even notice. One thorough financial audit can free up serious money. All right, here's what you actually do if you're in catch-up mode. Step 1, face the numbers, no more hiding. Open every account, calculate your net worth, and use a retirement calculator to see where you actually stand. The anxiety of not knowing is worse than the reality of knowing. Step 2, define your actual goal. Maybe traditional retirement at 65 isn't realistic, but working until 70 with part-time work after. That might be achievable. Get specific. Step 3, automate everything. Set up automatic transfers the day after your paycheck hits. If you never see the money, you won't miss it. This is the single most effective behavioral technique for consistent saving. Step 4, increase your income. I know that's easier said than done, but if you're behind, you can't save your way out alone. You need to earn more. That might mean switching jobs, getting a certification, starting a side business, or freelancing. But saving 30% of a bigger number is better than saving 40% of a smaller number. Step 5, optimize taxes. Max out tax-advantaged accounts first. Traditional 401k and IRA contributions reduce your taxable income now, which is especially valuable if you're in your peak earning years. HSAs are triple tax-advantaged. Conversions might make sense. This is where a financial advisor earns their fee. Step 6, be strategic about Social Security. Every year you delay taking Social Security past your full retirement age up to age 70, your benefit increases by about 8%. That's a guaranteed return you can't get anywhere else. Here's what I want you to understand. Being behind doesn't mean being doomed, but it does mean being different. You can't have the same relationship with money as people who started early. You can't make the same choices as people who are on track. You have to be more intentional, more disciplined, and more strategic. And honestly, there's something clarifying about that. When you realize you don't have room for financial mistakes anymore, you stop making them. When you know every dollar matters, you treat every dollar like it matters. Some of the most financially successful people I know didn't get serious until their 40s. But once they got serious, they were ruthlessly focused in a way the early starters never had to be. The late bloomers often end up more financially literate, more intentional with their money, and more appreciative of what they build because they know how hard they worked for it. Look, I'm not going to lie to you and say catching up is easy. It's not. The math is brutal, the psychology is hard, and you're fighting against time itself. But here's the alternative, doing nothing. And in 10 years, being even further behind with even less time to fix it. The best time to start was 20 years ago. The second best time is today, right now, this moment. Not next month when you get that raise. Not next year when things settle down, today. Because every single day you wait, the math gets worse. The burden gets heavier. The gap gets wider. But every day you act, you get a tiny bit closer. You build momentum. You create options for your future self. Financial catch-up is brutal. but so is being 75 years old, unable to retire, and wishing you'd started when you were reading this video. You get to choose which brutal you want. If this video gave you that wake-up call you needed, hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below telling me where you're starting from. No judgment, just accountability. We're all figuring this out together. And remember, the goal isn't to be perfect. The goal is to be better than you were yesterday. Start there. Now go face those numbers. Your future self is counting on you.